Namaste. Welcome back to Decks I Recommend. This is the 13th episode, and these are decks that I recommend for professionals. Decks that I suggest are for more experienced readers who need depth, nuance, and strong symbolism. These decks are ideal for layered readings, spiritual insight, and working with clients at a professional level. This is not to say that you couldn't work with these decks on your own. It's just that these decks are very nuanced and take a significant amount of time to dive into. Left to right, these are the Primordial Tarot by Sergio Tappi, the Transparent Tarot by Emily Carding, Lonely Dreamer by Melissa Wotherspoon, and the Tyldwick Tarot by the late Neil Lavelle. The Primordial Tarot was originally published as Tarot of Origin, and while the art will be familiar, the cardstock, the borders, the deck looks quite different as Primordial Tarot, and I sorted it for you so you could see the deck is indeed color-coded, which certainly helps when you're starting to learn this deck. I have done a couple of videos ages ago on the Primordial Tarot. I would equate this deck to working with Tarot of the She, or maybe even the Marielle Tarot. It's quite a hard hitting deck and dives deep into your soul. The major arcana are black borders, and the borders are so subtle. They're on the side of the card. The wands, now loosely related to the suit of wands, are these green cards, suit of nature. Sometimes they feel like pentacles cards. Suit of blood has a spear here. These are red and related sort of to the suit of swords. This is suit of the soul. You can see the vessel on the bottom right corner. And this is, again, sort of related to the suit of cups. And I'll speak in more detail in just a moment. And the suit of jewels, coins, pentacles is a gold color, which is a really fitting color for that suit. Let's look at the major arcana. Why I put this deck in this category is for its confronting nature. You want to know your clients, and when you have a client who is ready and willing to dive into deeper work, this is an amazing deck for that. There are so many confronting questions that can be asked, and the expressions on the faces of the humans in this deck are, it's just amazing. It really is. Perspective is so interesting. There are a couple of cards. I'm thinking of the Hermit card, which is one of my favorites. And I know I've had a few. Oh, I love the Fool card too. And the Tower card. So many. Oh, and this one. Here is the Hermit card. The perspective here is really different than a hermit you would have seen before. The hermit is sitting here inside, and I know we've had different opinions on this, shoulder socket, hip socket of this particular animal. And I just find that this repurposing of this skeleton as a cave, I don't know, I love what the artist imagined in this deck. So, other favorite cards. Oh, there's so many of them. The joy of the Fool. Laughter. That somebody in this particular era would laugh and find simplicity and joy of life. You can see we have a waxing crescent up at the top. Lots of really great symbolism here. This is the Tower card. Now, most of the cards have been renamed. However, for many of them, you will, as a professional reader, be able to find deep connections. You don't see the color of Mars here. There's none of that in this deck. You won't be able to make too many Golden Dawn associations. what you will get from this is something at a gut level to help you move through issues. I would use this deck with a client who is ready to take something to the next level. This incredible Temperance card. This is the Star, and I love this spark. This spark that is created by rubbing two rocks together. And it's funny, I hadn't thought about this before. There's a few figures in this deck that are blue or green, blue. And this reminds me of working with the energy of the Hindu pantheon, gods and goddess. And when the blue color is present in those beings, then they have taken on the pain and suffering of humanity, or one human in particular, and they are digesting it. And I haven't brought that into one of these readings, but I think I could do that in this deck. I find the majors are really easy to read. This is the Emperor, just stunning Emperor and Empress. And I love how the lovers have this mala necklace surrounding the both of them. And this is a really gut-wrenching Hanged Man. But I think it is one that asks you to face your fears, face your truth. I love this Devil card. When we work with masks, that is just a great way to begin to discuss the issue of, are we hiding behind the mask, or are we playing with our power, much like a shaman, by donning the mask? We're able to discover something about ourselves by wearing the mask that we may not be able to had we not been wearing the mask. In this World card, we see that the human is very small on this journey of life. And even in the minors, there's some great perspective cards. Something else you should know about this deck is that the pages, knights, queens, and kings are numbered cards. So you can see we have a 10 here on 10 of jewels. And this is 12. So this is going to be the Knight of Jewels. And if I go through here, here is, I love this one. This is the King of Pentacles. There is so much strength. I find this deck, while it's confronting, it's really empowering. It forces you to ask some really hard questions. There are several cards that have masks on them, so it's a great deck for working with that. Here would be it's your 11, so there's your page. Here's your Knight of Cups, your Knight of Vessels, or Knight of the Soul. So this deck is referred to as the Soul. And there's quite a few cards that are screaming, and that might be very confrontational, triggering, shocking even for some people. So like I said, you are a professional tarot reader. And in working with a deck like this, you really want to know your clients. This is not a deck you would use on a first, second, third session. This is something you would use afterwards. And you can see the Queen of Soul has removed their mask. They are able and willing to show their face. And then here is the little page hiding under a mask. This is the 9 of the Soul. This reminds me a bit of the Tower card in the Phalarkos Tarot. You know, I said sometimes that the green suit reminds me of both Pentacles and Wands. And this suit does have, this is the suit of water, it does have qualities of the suit of swords as well. And this is an example of a deck where you need to be very fluid in and trust in what you are picking up on in a reading. Okay, so that is Suit of the Soul, blue, and this is Suit of Blood. It speaks very loudly to root chakra, even though I would not say the element of air, the Suit of Swords, is not connected to the root chakra. It has to do with the fierceness of, so this is childbirth, right? There's some really difficult cards here, more screaming cards. Here's a very brave page of blood. Here's your knight facing the bear. If you have worked with the hunter-gatherer archetype, you will also really like this deck. Find it very meaningful. And love this one. This is the 10 of Wands, or 10 of Nature. There is a lot to be found here. So, highly recommend this deck for tarot professionals. It will be a great deck as well, too, for if you're a psychologist and you use cards in your psychology practice. Primordial Tarot by Sergio Toppi. I cannot say enough about the Transparent Tarot. This is a deck that is all about layers, symbols, and nuances. I did a workshop with Emily Carding a couple of years ago, and it was fantastic. It really gave me some great insight into working with this deck and a whole new level of confidence. And I have done some videos on this deck, so please check those out. I'll be sure to link them in the description box below. Major Arcana has a number up at the top, and the connection among these cards is really quite extraordinary. And like in the other videos in this series, I am showing 2 mass market and 2 self-published decks, and this is the second of the mass market decks. In a tarot reading, you can line the cards up like you would in a normal reading. But with this one, you also have the option of layering the cards. And in a reading, you will always have one card that is at the top and one that is at the bottom. And that will add to the depth of the reading, because you will not be able to see the card on the bottom as clearly as the ones on the top. So that's what 3 cards look like. 5 cards, it starts to get really muddled, and you can begin to see the intersection among these cards. So what I usually do when I'm working with this deck is I do a spread, much like I would do with a standard tarot deck, and then I begin to weave the layers together. And sometimes there will be 2 cards that are speaking to each other, and so I will put them together as a pair that I want to discuss. And this is really interesting, how this 7 of Swords is moving out and away from this restriction that the devil has imposed. So if you're just beginning with this deck, there are numbers on the left. The suit symbol is on the right, and for the majors, there's a number up at the top. It's so much fun. I want to show you something. So I pulled out a few different groups of cards, and there are pictures in the guidebook to show you all of this if you don't have the deck. But here are the 4 pages. And I believe the pages are all on the right bottom. The knights are on the left bottom. And then we can look at where the queens and the kings are. But if you had 2 pages in a reading and you layered them, you can begin to see what it looks like when the energy of the Page of Wands and the Page of Cups goes together. Now, in this case, the Page of Wands is the dominant energy, but what if the Page of Cups were the dominant energy? How would that look different? And in the minors, so here are the 4 8s. Let's put them down one at a time. 8 of Cups, 8 of Pentacles, and I believe they're going to form a circle. There's 8 of Wands and 8 of Swords. And each of the numbers have this really interesting relationship. And here's another one. Here are all the fives, and all the fives are down at the bottom where they should be, struggling in this world. There is the Five of Wands and the Five of Swords, Five of Pentacles, and here is the Five of Cups. I just love what they have done with this deck. Also, I want to show you that this is a plastic deck, but it still shuffles just like any other tarot deck. This Phoenix card is just amazing. One of the fun things we also did with this deck was to create a sigil. And I don't remember if we did it intentionally or we did it randomly. And so, for example, if you were, let's just do it like you would a reading. I'm going to cut the cards. And let's say that this is our reading. 1, 2, 3. Not that you probably would want to have I can't remember how we did this, but you would want to choose cards of inspiration, intentional. So let's say that we're starting a business and we want the Ace of Pentacles to be part of our energy for this new business. It's part of our intention. And maybe our business is about transformation. It's about changing people's lives. And then you could pick, I don't know, another card. I think I still have mine here. Yes, I do. And maybe your business is about the truth. And so you put these 3 cards together, and you could take a photograph and you just sort of put this, you can put it in your phone, put it in your wallet, and have it with you. I love how it looks kind of holographic like this, as inspiration. There's so many things you can do with this deck. This is one that I created when I did the workshop, or after I did the workshop with Emily, and I've just had it here in my tarot stand, inspiring me, sort of vibrating energy towards me. And I am sure that you could think of any number of things to do with this deck. There is so much potential here. And you certainly can't, like if you can't read, you couldn't work with all of the cards, and there's a certain amount of time where the layers become just too muddied. But there might be something in the middle that sticks out that you want to investigate. I also use this occasionally with a light table, and that's really fun as well. And it doesn't take long to get to know the cards. And at first, you may be confused about why a particular symbol has been chosen for a card. Most of the time, it feels quite natural. There is your lightning bolt for the Tower, 2 of Cups. But sometimes you will do a double take and go, ooh, okay, not quite sure why that one was chosen. There's your Chariot card. Oh, this one I really like. I need to move some cards out of the way. Can you see this? This is the Hermit. It reminds me a little bit of some of the Earth-centric decks. This one is a strong, mighty oak with deep roots And so when you're working with the Hermit, you can see in your layer what is below and what is coming out of the branches above. And certainly you can get really creative with how you arrange your layers. They need not be just stacked. You could certainly tell a story and put the layers where you need to put them, much like if you were telling a story to a child. Yeah. So this is the amazing Transparent Tarot by Emily Carding, and the first of 2 self-published decks. This is the Lonely Dreamer Tarot by Melissa Wotherspoon. This is the first edition, and I believe there are 3 editions, and they are often available on Facebook Marketplace, different tarot trading Facebook pages, as well as eBay. This is a deep, deep deck. It is based on the art of Odilon Medan, and I find this to be a great, I was going to say Scorpio deck. It is a wonderful deck for looking at shadow and learning how to embrace shadow and carry it with us proudly. The colors in this deck are magnificent, and it is one where I think you want to tread lightly. Some of the dark cards, again, are very, very dark. There was a period in Odilon Medan's life where, oh, this is a gorgeous card, this 3 of Wands, where I believe it was called the noir period, the black period, and this would have been a time when he was in deep contemplation, isolation, depression. I don't know a lot about the biography of the artist, but the black cards certainly do contrast to the colored cards. And I think for the most part that Melissa has done a great job in placing the Wands, Cups, Swords, and Pentacles on the cards not too intrusively. In the second, third edition, some of the cards were switched, and so if you see a title on a card and you go, oh, I have this deck and it's not like that, yes, there were some cards that were changed for the different variations of the deck. Now, sometimes I think this looks very Waite-Smith inspired. However, the reason that I would use this at a deeper level, different layers of meaning, I would say it's not as confrontational or perhaps invasive as something like Tarot of the She or the Primordial that I showed you earlier in this video, but it is one that doesn't hide away from one's depths and darkness. And even the World card, there's lots of questions to ask here about fears and challenges as we move through this transition. I think some of the images may be triggering, and so it would be important that you know the deck well and you know your clients well. Some of them appear to have a religious connotation, so if that is an issue, then you would also want to know that your client is okay with that. But I love the art. And when you are working with a curated deck, sometimes it just doesn't work. And this one does. It really does. I believe I changed this one. So this was one of the additional cards, and I put this in place of the Fool and removed the Fool from my pack. And I know each of the editions of this deck came with different extra cards. A couple of the extra cards, I believe the Dreamer is one. I don't know if it's in here right now, but I often mix those in with the pack because I feel like they are a part of, look at this gorgeous King of Pentacles. In some ways, I feel my Soul Cards Tarot would read really well with this deck. It kind of has that flavor. There is deep contemplation. There is a tenderness. There's really interesting use of color that you may want to work with. And these black cards. So one of the things you could do as a tarot professional is to pull out all the black cards and do something with the black cards versus the colored cards. And I'm just thinking of this on the fly. So you could have all the black cards on one side, all the colored cards on the other. There's way more colored cards than black cards, but that would be a really interesting activity to do. I think you can get really creative as a professional in how you use cards. I would even put this wash, do like a wash and spread these all out on the table. And this is a gorgeous Six of Swords. And have the client choose a card that speaks to them and then start from there. And then you could use that as a significator in a larger reading, or you could create journal prompts together from that card. And then in some ways, I see the painted tarot in this deck as well, too. Here's a very challenging Five of Wands. In spirit, there are onlookers witnessing this rather horrific scene. And even in this Knight of Pentacles, there's quite a bit of darkness, and there's this eerie red inside this cave. This is not a deck that I would use with somebody that I was seeing for the first time and didn't know a thing or two about. This one is gorgeous, Aphrodite. I don't have another version of this deck to compare, but I'm sure on YouTube you can find comparisons of first, second, third edition and see what the changes were made. I know the Hermit was changed and this became an extra card in one of the decks, but this is a really, really beautiful deck. So the Oracle cards are not here. And sometimes, like I said, I do put them in. But I find this can take readings into some depths that other decks do not, and almost hauntingly so. The Lonely Dreamer Tarot by Melissa Wotherspoon. The Tyldwick Tarot. This is a favorite. One of my favorite layers in this deck is the metaphor of the house. And in this deck, we have interior locations. We have some that appear to be in a basement, or it could be in an attic. This one is outside, maybe the chapel on the property. I like to imagine when I use this deck that this is an extensive property and we wander inside and outside, top floor, basement, main floor. Sometimes we have cards that have pictures on the wall, and there are a number of cards that are in the garden. And in the garden, we may see space, spaciousness, another beautiful interior landscape. Sometimes it's raining. We can't see clearly past what is in the foreground. Other times we have a whole scene, and there may be a gate. In the court cards, there is a small painting with a face on it. Often the three-dimensionality of the space shows up. And depending on which edition you have, you will be able to see the pictures more clearly. This is not a deck that you want to read with in a dark room, no matter what edition that you have. These pictures need good light, good eyes, and when I'm working with this deck, I always have my magnifying glass handy. I did 10, 11, 12 videos on this deck, did a deep dive. If you are interested and maybe you purchased this deck but put it away and never actually read with it, it's a really powerful deck. It is layered, layered, layered. And every time I do a reading with this deck, I find new components to work with. Why are the doors closed? The doors aren't open. We aren't using the good china. I mean, that's one sort of an obvious one. Sometimes you feel like in a reading, you're not seeing the whole picture. It's zoomed in, so you're only seeing part of it, so you can imagine what might be on the other side, completing the painting. There is a small guidebook that goes with the deck that was created by the brother of the creator of this deck. And he pulled together Neil's notes and made a small PDF. And you get quite a bit of information that it's really, really interesting. It certainly helps to fill in some of the questions about the deck, but not answer by any means all of mine. Like it would tell you what this tapestry is behind if there was a name for the tapestry. And so here's another example. We see these 4 beer steins here, but this is cut off, right? So I imagine there are more beer steins over here. So why is the focus on these 4? And what is the relationship between the tapestry and the background and these 4 cups? Is this in an attic or a room where all this luggage is stored, or are these bags waiting to be picked up by a carriage outside? Interior landscapes can represent that which is held within, as opposed to the exterior landscapes where we have more space. And sometimes we have furniture outside, which is really interesting. The Devil card is great. It's simply a mirror, a reflection. And here's an example of a spacious exterior landscape. And we can think about as well, too, what is beyond the wall. There's one card that has barbed wire. This one here kind of reminds me of the, Francis Hodgkins Burnett's Secret Garden, the door that is revealed. And it's funny because I've made up quite a few stories for some of these cards, and you can hear about that in the Tyldwick series that I did. And then I go and read the description and I go, what? That's not what this card is. And so that's always fun to learn about something afterwards and then try to weave it together if it fits within a reading. But as with any deck, a card only speaks in response to a question. And this kind of deck I would use again when we are wandering in deeper layers with a client. This is the quite extraordinary Tyldwick Tarot by Neil Lavelle. And here is the 8 of Pentacles in each of these decks. This is the Transparent Tarot by Emily Carding. The Tyldwick Tarot by Neil Lavelle. Lonely Dreamer by Melissa Wotherspoon, and the Primordial Tarot by Sergio Toppi. I really appreciate you being a part of this series and can't thank you enough for all of the wonderful comments and feedback you have given. Enjoy the rest of your day. Namaste.